Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hairy News. Sorry, I was just writing a banner and I haven't checked the banner, Chewy. And if I do this, we'll see if I've spelt it right. Merch drop at BHN. Oh, I got a capital N there. Anyone who buys, don't ever do
scrub the whole
during
thing.
a live stream gets a
Shows
free
it washed
BHN
out.
gift thrown in while stocks are. Okay, I've got to go and edit that again. All right, I was just working. How are you, man?
Good.
Me and Chewy were just talking about all sorts of stuff beforehand. Then I went, you know what? We're going to be late in a second. We better go, or else they're going to yell at us. So here we are. Hey, bro, what's going on?
Oh, good. I am good. As you were mocking me last night, I was at Pink last night.
Mocking?
And
Mocking?
Look, you were mocking. I did watch the show as soon as I got back, and I noticed 6 different occasions of you mocking me. I think you've got your studio speakers on as well, by the way.
You are so right. They're off now. Well
Hey,
done, son.
there we go. Look, I am not someone that enjoys pop music, but
She's
of
a bit
all
of
the
a
pop
rock.
stars,
She's a bit of a rocker.
there's a couple of pop stars that I'm like, you should be in a rock band. Pink is definitely up there, and I had a good time. It was a good show. And to see Dunedin Stadium full of 40,000 people was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It was enough to absolutely crush the nearest cell tower. We had no cell reception during the whole show.
Oh, good.
So my idea of live streaming to you from the concert, going, I can't hear you, didn't work.
It's playing a bit of groove there in the background because we haven't checked anything. It's all sounding good.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Hey guys, look, thanks so much for being with us last night as well. You know, Bomber joined us last night, and some of the stuff we talked about last night has really hit the traps and is going a bit ballistic. I want to share a couple of things with you tonight. This is more like I feel like we're doing this thing together, yeah? Like I feel like this is we're a whānau, we do this together. I know that it sometimes feels like a bit of a one-way conversation because me and Chewy talk to you, and even though you do talk back over there in the chat, it's not quite the interaction like you'd have in a pub, but it does feel like community and whānau to me. And I had someone on Twitter today, and I just wanted to share something with you, and I'm not going to show who it was because it doesn't actually matter, because this is like me sharing family news, yeah? Because we know how we finished up last year, rip snorting along, and it was all good, and numbers were massive. So someone today says up here, a snarky comment, no one's listening anyway, guys. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So this is just to share with you guys what we've done in the last month, and this is only Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok, right? So this is just in the last 30 days. This is YouTube. So on YouTube there is about 190,000 views in the last month. Remember we did this when we started this. We had a week where we get 900 views. So in the last month we're approaching 200,000 views. On Twitter, which is actually my personal account, but it's where we put all the gear. You know, I'm going to say approaching 150,000 views in the month, 143,700, and that's just video views, right? That means all the clips and stuff as well. And on my TikTok account, which is pretty much just BHN as well, 400,000 views to 225,000 people. Now, I know when I said this the other day, maybe it was during our meetup, Spider Hoof went, no, don't talk your numbers down. I know that's not massive compared to some, but from where we started, I think my first show that I did this with Jeremy Elwood has had 79 views. The show we've just coming off last night, I think, is approaching 3,000. So it's good to share it with you guys because, you know, me and Chewy often talk about momentum. I mean, I was talking to Elwood the other day and I sent this through to you, Chewy, and Elwood goes, everywhere I'm going, I'm hearing BHN's conversations. And it's like, it's momentum, right? It's us saying to you, your support is growing this. It's not about me and Chewy. It's about the community around us. And really, if me and Chewy could have these conversations every night at the pub and no one would know about it, but we're having them here with you and you let people know about it, and that's the result we all get together. So I just kind of went through and I was being a bit snarky to this guy on Twitter today, and I thought, I might just share those tonight. So
on Twitter, not what
just
it's for.
So you guys can know, because I really do feel like you have some ownership in these numbers. Because like, without you, none of this is possible. Was that sincere? Did that sound sincere?
Pretty much. What I love about that is it's like, oh, nobody's listening, mate. If no one was listening, we'd still be doing this because that's how we started.
Yeah,
with no one listening.
But speaking of no one listening,
productive.
Speaking of no one listening, what happened to you at Pink last night? surrounding TikTok?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I got stopped more than once.
Oh, really?
Adrian going, "Oh, bro, are you Chewy?" And I was like, "Oh, I've seen you on TikTok, bro. I love your stuff." Like, this is the weirdest place for this to happen. Yeah, and
Yeah.
the dude was stoked, and I was stoked, and it's just from something that started with maybe we'll try this to where we are now. It's pretty good, and it does, like you mentioned, momentum. That's my favorite word when you're building something. Is it feels like we've
Yeah.
got some. It feels like you guys in the chat are bringing more and more people in, and I think we've really hit a mine of we're talking to the right people, we're saying the right things, um, and maybe sometime in the future we'll be leading a convoy from Invercargill up to the lawns of Parliament, and we'll
If,
do it proper. We won't assault passing schoolgirls and stuff like that. We'll do it proper.
if you say metaphorically, I'm on board. I'm a bit like you. What I like is when I approach an academic, like I did yesterday for some things, maybe we'll talk tomorrow, and their response is, "Oh, yeah, we love your stuff." More and more people are saying that they're engaging with it and they know it from the outside, and that's pretty cool as well. And again, look, this is not a back slapping exercise. It's actually me genuinely wanting to share with you guys that this is getting momentum. And yes, it's got something to do with me and Chewy, but it's almost like there's three parts to this. There's me, there's Chewy, and there's you. And all three of us together are building this. So I wanted to encourage all of us and just say, we're not quite at Mr. Beast numbers yet, but we're moving in the right direction. We need 100 million subscribers to get to Mr. Beast numbers, but we're moving in the right direction. That's what I want to say. But look, one other thing in saying all of that, remember we've got this special on this week only where we've got our merch. Now, I'm pretty sure we're going to have buffer merch every single month, but every single month it'll be a different color. So if blue is not your thing and you want to be a buffer boy or girl or something in between or something outside, then maybe next month it'll be a bit different. Maybe I'll do a more feminine color next time, and a masculine and a feminine and a neutral. I don't know. We'll play with it. And you already know what that is. That's from Professor Margaret Muto telling non-Māori, you guys need to be a buffer to help us. That's the best way you can help us, to be a buffer between us and the crown. And of course, we've got the personalized gear there and the general gear there as well. If you want to have personalized gear with your name on the back, please make sure you tick the personalized thing, because we pay more to get names on the back. One or two people have clicked the non-personalized one and put their name on it. I think we can probably absorb one or two. We're not going to stress too much about it. But if you are going to get personalized stuff, just please be aware there are two things there that say personalized t-shirt, personalized hoodies. So the deal is, if you buy during the live stream, so the show takes an hour. So that means for us before 10:30, that's an hour, isn't it? Between now, something like that. That's an hour.
Now and 90 minutes from now.
Then what I do is I'm going to throw in some more merch for free. It'll either be a blue on yellow t-shirt, a black on black t-shirt, or a cap, until while stocks last. Now I think I've got plenty of them compared to the orders we've had this week. Like, I genuinely think we're fine. But if you're a large t-shirt merch order, I'll try and throw a large t-shirt in. If I can't throw a large t-shirt in, I'll throw a cap in. If I don't have any caps left or a large t-shirt, then what I'll do is I'll throw you something in, and then you can gift it to someone else to spread the word. Cool. But it has to be during the show. We're only giving out free merch to people who purchase on bhnshop.nz, as it says going along the bottom of the screen there, before the end of the show. Now, there's one little story I want to jump on, and I know you've got one little story as well, but this is actually we're going to what do you call it? Bookmark this till tomorrow. Is that the right saying? We bookmark it till tomorrow, because there was an announcement made today about an announcement that's going to be made tomorrow. And I don't know how scary it is, but TVNZ news staff have been told to expect an announcement on Thursday. Some TVNZ news staff have been told to brace for an email announcement on Thursday. TVNZ has acknowledged to staff that it has, quote, a need to reduce our head count. The development at the state-owned broadcaster comes exactly a week after Newshub announced a proposal to close down. Some staff in TVNZ's newsroom have been told to expect an email on Thursday about the future of its news operation. The news at State-owned broadcaster comes exactly a week after. Now that's scary for a bunch of reasons. Like, numbers up, numbers down. It does happen, but all the people who have just lost those 300 people at News Hub, they'll be going, oh man, I wonder if I can score something at TVNZ. And if TVNZ is reducing numbers, then there's a scary moment with anyone, I guess, working in media. I've been there, I was quite lucky because when 2008 kicked through, the global financial crisis, I was working for News Talk ZB, and you can't replace a live talkback host. You have to have someone there, so it was fairly secure for me. But I was doing other work for like the Hits and other radio stations. I lost all of that work, but I still had my main gig going. So I've sort of seen it from the inside, and it's a very, very scary time. So fingers crossed for TVNZ staff tomorrow, and I guess probably tomorrow night we'll talk more about this. That's my little earmark for that, Chewy. But you wanted to talk about something as well to do with EVs?
Yeah, so I was arguing in the chat before we came to air. That's why we're a little bit late. Look, this is a double issue. We've talked about the government ramming through so many things in the first 100 days of urgency, and this is kind of a button issue for me, and it's also an illustration of the overall situation that we're in. So the suggested changes to road user charges for EVs, that's been well advertised. They're asking for public submissions. Now, usually you got a fair whack of time to get submissions done, sometimes up to a few weeks to a month. They've given people less than 2 days. I found out about this yesterday afternoon. Submissions close lunchtime tomorrow. Now, they've also done this again when they were talking about bringing pseudoephedrine back into the country. They actually gave people less than 24 hours to make submissions. So I think this is just an illustration. The speed that they are ramming this through with the minimum of public consultation, probably a big part of why they did what they did with the Māori Health Authority as well.
Yeah.
Is they're just not giving people that want to be involved in our democracy, they're not giving people the chance to do it. So if you're someone like me that is invested in EVs, or just invested in evidence-based policy, or just think that this whole road user charge thing is rushed on ideological grounds, then I recommend that you put your thoughts in the submission and get it in before lunchtime tomorrow. Now, I've already had people going, you just don't want to pay road user charges. Incorrect. And just taking a temperature of the EV groups that I'm in, nobody expected the free ride for EVs to continue. It was an incentive for uptake on EVs. What they don't like is the fact that it's not an even playing field, no matter how much Simeon Brown says it is. And I think if they took more time and rolled out a sensible, evidence-based, robust change to how we fund our roads, then that is the better choice than ramming something through targeting a particular type of vehicle while saying, hey, at some point we're going to bring it out for everyone. Just take the time and do it well. All light passenger vehicles should pay road user charges.
Yeah. And
they should be different classes depending on their type of fuel.
Yeah.
At the moment, we've got some people paying road user charges at 77 cents per 1,000 kilometers. Diesels and battery EVs. Hybrids are paying some road user excise tax per litre and some per kilometre. And then you've got vehicles using petrol paying per litre but not per kilometre. So it gets very screwy about who actually is paying a fair share to use the roads. That's my argument. The other part of the road user charges is it's an old system. Why do I need to pay a $12.50 administration fee for a sticker in my window when we live in the 21st century? Why do I have to buy them in blocks of 1,000? If you can only buy the minimal chunk of road user charges, you're having to pay that $12.50 fee every time you do so. Right. Whereas someone could buy years worth all in one hit. It's a regressive tax. There's a lot wrong.
Yeah.
And it's not just because people with EVs want a free ride. It's ridiculous.
Do you have any idea? Because I actually, you said 77 cents per 1,000 Ks. It's $77 per 1,000 Ks, right?
Oh, yeah, sorry, 70 cents per K.
Yeah, so $77.
Yeah.
Because for a lot of people, let's say you're in Auckland or one of the, you might do 1,000 Ks every 2 weeks. So that's not an insignificant amount of money. Do you feel like I would like to know, when you're paying it per litre, you could still, of course, work out how much a petrol car right now is paying per kilometre. Do we have those numbers? Do we know what they are?
Well, what's the current fuel excise?
Because fuel at the moment is about $2.80. Most cars, round figures, will use up 10 litres to do 100 Ks. That'll be about, so call it 100 litres to do 1,000 Ks. That'll be an average to poor performing vehicle. So 100 Ks is going to be, say, $280 of fuel.
So petrol excise duty remains at its current reduced rate of 45 cents per litre until June 30th, 2023. Okay, so that's out of date.
So 50 cents per litre. And if you use
currently it's 77 cents per litre.
So that's the same as per K. Whereas a litre will get you further than a K. A litre will get you 10 Ks, won't it? Give or take.
Depending on the type of vehicle you've got, yeah.
Ish. So petrol cars are currently paying 77 cents for somewhere between 8 and 15 Ks for a litre of fuel. EVs are paying 77 cents per K. That doesn't seem right.
Yeah. So this is the argument that we're seeing in the EV space is like, okay, Simeon Brown is saying it needs to, everybody's paying their fair share. And EV drivers that I've seen commenting are, I agree, so let's do that. Because at the moment it's not. And that's completely putting aside of, should we be incentivizing people to use more fuel efficient vehicles or battery vehicles or that sort of thing. That's a side issue.
Right.
It's the fact of like, if you took the time and go, hey, look, we haven't looked at road user charges for like 40 years. So let's just say, and this is my personal opinion, and this is what I'll be submitting later on tonight, is all light passenger vehicles should pay road user charges. Those road user charges should be collected and monitored electronically. There shouldn't be a punitive admin fee, and it should be instant.
We can do that with I guess most of New Zealand does, but I do that with parking. I've got an app and I put $50 on my parking, and then that lasts me while I'm paying for my parking. There should just be something like that, an app that you just upgrade the money, put more money on it, and then it's done. Nothing.
I mean, as it stands at the moment for road user charges, you can get them or not. You are just rolling the dice on whether the cops are going to pull you over and check your ruck sticker.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you make it easy for people to stay legit, then chances are they are.
Yeah.
But if you put barriers for them up, and we know that people do that with diesel vehicles, that they'll dodge ruck or they'll go, well, I'm not going to go anywhere where the cops are. So, or, you're putting it's another thing for the police to check. It's another thing that would make people avoid getting their cars registered, all sorts of things. The police can, if it was electronic, they'd be able to tie it to the registration of your vehicle. They could check very, very easily. And it would be such an easy thing for people to fix. It just seems the system that we have at the moment is outdated anyway.
Yeah.
This is a good opportunity to do it once and do it right, rather than what Simeon's suggesting of we do it, part of it now for EVs, and I'm kind of doing it in a hurry because we said we'd do it the first 100 days. But don't worry, we're going to do it for all vehicles at some stage. It just seems like a Band-Aid solution, and they're just going to build something on a really shaky foundation that's going to need to get fixed later anyway. So why not just do it properly?
Alrighty. Hey, one other thing before we keep going, because when you were talking about people recognizing you at the concert and stuff, I forgot, because I wrote down in my head the thing that I like most of all at the moment. The other thing that I like most of all about what we're doing and people kind of following us around is when I see people outside of our cycle referring to Plunkett as Karen. Like if you go onto his Twitter feed or onto his, there's often a comment calling him Karen. That's one of that makes me happier than almost anything, because I know he hates it by the stupid little nicknames he's tried to give me that won't stick. But yeah, where other people call him Karen on his stuff, that's a beautiful thing.
We've got to make Oliver stick.
Oliver Karen,
little Ollie, little Ollie Plunkett,
wee little Ollie. All right, hey, let's get into this, because this first story, just lighthearted, is terrifying. This is a terrifying story about the government putting in new stringent criteria around emergency housing. This story is going to cause more homeless people in New Zealand, and it's that kind of, I don't want to say CEO talk, but it's that kind of business talk about outcomes and, the most vulnerable, yada, yada, yada. Bomber made a really good point last night about when they talk about the people who need it most. So that means what you do, let's say 30% of people need it. But if you start thinking about people who need it most, that means you might be able to cut it to 5%. And there's still 25% who need it, but they're not the ones who need it most. The ones who need it most are this little slither at the end. And there's still other people who need it, but they're not the ones who need it most. So we got to be very careful and see what they're doing here in their shell game. That they are, I believe now, I'm sold. I mean, I think I always was, but they are just trying to cut as much money as they can to fulfill their promises that they never budgeted for correctly. And now we're looking at emergency housing.
The government has labelled its new emergency housing plan as bold and radical, saying putting people up in
Radical, dude.
Hotels is far too costly, with taxpayers forking out $1 million a day.
Straight away. So, okay, fair enough. Don't put them up in motels. Where are you going to put them? Oh, there's not enough housing. So that means the street. So where are they going to go? Because there's literally nowhere else. But you don't want them in hotels, motels. Where are they going to go? Cars and streets.
The new plan includes putting greater scrutiny on those seeking emergency accommodation while pushing families with children to the front of the queue. Deputy Political Editor Mikey Sherman reports.
For years now,
that's doing a lot of heavy lifting. That word, greater scrutiny, is doing a lot of nasty far right heavy lifting.
Hotels across the country have gone from housing holiday makers to those who'd otherwise likely be homeless.
Emergency housing started as a system where a few people spent a short amount of time, essentially a roof over someone's head. What it's turned into is a institutionalised bureaucracy where now around 3,000 families live in those motels.
Of that,
Okay, do we need to stop there? Institutionalized bureaucracy, emergency housing. So he's basically saying this is no longer a need. This is just some people rorting the system and living for free. That's what he is saying, Chewy.
What a demon. Emergency housing, let's cast our mind back. Do you remember when there was an absolute crisis of people living in cars?
Yeah.
And Paula Bennett went out and about and knocked on car windows and actually found out that people really actually wanted to live in their cars, that it was by choice. We had a crisis of that. And then fast forward a little bit and we had COVID and we were going into a lockdown or a quarantine situation where people would be living on the streets during a respiratory pandemic. At the same time, motels, they were drying up. People were staying home. We weren't having travellers. There was a perfect storm of okay, we can snatch up a whole bunch of motels really, really quickly, and we can put people inside for this pandemic. That was the aim, because there was not enough places to house everyone in this country. I mean, we know that there are, but apparently we're supposed to kick in doors to make sure that people are living in empty houses. And that's the thing. What they're doing here is not solving a problem. They're not magicking up more houses. They are just cracking down on people at the bottom once again. It's mind-bogglingly evil.
Yep. We talked about Seymour being sort of Superman villain status of evil yesterday. I think maybe we're looking at the Batman level villains coming out in this one. It's pretty ugly.
3,800 families have children who've lived in emergency housing for more than 12 weeks. From April, a new Priority 1 category will put them at the top of the social housing waitlist.
I think it's fairly clear to say that bold and radical steps are needed to fix emergency housing in New Zealand.
You can create all the new categories you want.
Right, Pat.
Yeah.
He's
But
right.
that's not,
Bold and
but
radical.
that's not what they're
yes.
offering.
Build more fucking houses.
Yep.
That's bold and radical. Bold and radical is saying in this country we should not have hungry people. In this country we should not have homeless people. That's bold and radical. Let's do that. Let's do what Chris Bishop. That's what he meant, right?
I think so. I think he must have, or else he meant that and he's been corrected by the 9th floor once he left this stand-up. We'll keep going with Megan Woods.
But unless there are houses to move people into
Exactly.
and out of motels, then you're not going to solve the housing crisis.
We don't really have enough housing to move these families out into.
The biggest chunk of the government's plan is...
I thought about this as well, Chewy. Now, I think, we had a nice little epiphany last night about the way that David Seymour negates evidence. I had another one this afternoon, actually not for this story, but when we're going to talk about Karen Chhour, is that this government says all the time, we're going to bring in outside experts. We're a bit worried about that when it comes to privatisation, but they're like, we're going to get the right people who have the answers and bring them in from the outside, except for when it's a policy they want to get rid of. Because when it comes to things like this, the experts are that guy from Salvation Army. They won't listen to him. The experts are, the emergency housing people. Yeah, they will ignore them. They will ignore the experts when they don't want to put a policy in. They will seek outside expert advice when they do. And when we keep hearing them talking about they want to, be advised and work with experts, it's only for the stuff they want to push through. For the stuff they don't want, they stay as far away from the experts as possible. And I'm seeing it here as well, because all the people are telling them this is not the way to do it, yet they're ignoring them.
I find it quite telling that it's the Salvation Army as well. Now, remember in the past when National tried selling off a whole lot of social housing, they wanted outside agencies to basically buy those houses up and take over. And the Salvation Army was held up as one of the organisations that were going to buy a whole bunch of decrepit state houses with no work done on them. And it didn't happen. And then they went, well, the social agencies don't want it, so we'll just sell off the land. We won't build any houses. And I see a comment there that like the News Talk ZB crowd are fucking loving this stuff. And I've seen it in the rhetoric online. Who cares if the kids are hungry? It's the parents' fault. It's the parents' responsibility to feed them. Yeah, that might be the case. But the end result is a hungry kid that isn't going to learn properly. The evidence shows that. And a kid that's not learning, that is not engaged, goes off and gets engaged in something else. Gets engaged with a gang. Gets engaged with addiction. He gets engaged with crime. And then we're back in the same fucking circle again. And these guys don't see that. If we haven't got these, they need fed, they need a place to live. I don't care what the situation of the parents is. No child should be punished by the sins of the father or the sins of the mother. We need to break the system. We need to break that cycle. And these guys will make platitudes along those lines and then do the exact opposite to it. And the people that are in the comment sections fucking eat it up. And what it's from is, there is someone below me. That's why we have middle income earners stimping for millionaires. Like, you can't say, hey, look, maybe if we can't afford food, road, and housing, maybe we need to tax the rich more. And you have someone that makes the same amount of money going, no, you can't do that. It's their own fault. They're poor. It's like, bro, you are 2 paychecks away from being in their fucking shoes.
Well, dude, just to that point, we'll keep going, because they actually, one of the reasons for you being less likely to get emergency housing is, have you bought this on yourself? So that's a part of their actual overall things.
Pricks.
So let's keep going.
Ramping up scrutiny, including whether a person has tried other housing options,
So what have you done yourself?
previously paid their emergency housing bill,
Well, did you pay your bill last time, you people who were homeless?
and whether they unreasonably contribute.
And is it your fault? Unreasonably contributed to their immediate emergency housing needs. So these are ways that they're going to eliminate people. In other words, you know, mental health issues, whatever, people who really life get out of control. Well, if you've gotten your life out of control, then maybe we won't give you a house. But we do this a lot, right? And I used to do this on Talkback. And then what? Okay, so you've given them and it hasn't come to this yet. They're going to reduce the number from, I think it's 21 days to 4 days as the initial stay time that's allowed.
4 fucking days.
It'll come up.
Christ.
So what's going to happen on day 5? You're like, and then what? It goes on. We'll keep listening though.
Contributed to their housing need.
We need to make sure that support is targeted to those who have the highest needs.
There you go. There's the highest needs. So if 20% of people need it, this government can now go, we'll give it to the 2% who need it most of all. And then there's another 18% of people who need it and they can get cut away because the government can go, we're giving it to the highest need. We're focusing on the highest need. Yeah, I know you need it, but you're not the highest need. You know, you've got no kids, whereas these guys, so you can just, you're too bad, fight for yourself. That's the line we're going to keep hearing from. And this is the accountability we need to keep giving this government, right? The highest need versus need.
Initial housing grants will also shrink, going from up to 21 days down to 4 days max, while limiting staff discretion.
And that one as well, limiting staff discretion. So therefore, they want to lock staff into not being able to, you know, we always get examples in the grey areas. Like this situation, whatever it is, it's not really black or white. So we need some discretion here. The government, want to stop the experts, the people, Chewy, on the front line that they're so proud to talk about with all their tax cuts and stuff, the on the front line people, they want to limit their discretion. The people who are there seeing the situation with their eyes, working through the situation, this government wants to limit their discretion. They want to take the ability away from them to go, hey, this doesn't really fit the normal box. We need to help these guys for these reasons, X, Y, Z. They're going to go tick, 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 no discretion allowed. No discretion allowed.
So
that's what these guys are doing.
The people that know the local, that know the people, that know these cases personally, that know the situation on the ground, the local services and providers, those people. No, we can't have them making decisions.
Yeah, the front office. You know, those people that they're not going to touch and not going to take any funding away from, those people. They're the ones on the front line.
Discretion.
I'm encouraging them to take greater consideration of the applications rather than just giving a grant straight away and we see a family and children go into a motel.
The Salvation Army says that comes with a risk.
With greater scrutiny is that you're stopping people who often are in need getting access to housing.
And without access, more people may end up homeless.
Mate.
So I have grave concerns. The numbers for poverty here in Aotearoa haven't changed. 100,000 people are homeless. 60,000 of those are Māori. So I have grave concerns.
I'm not saying it is going to be perfect.
Nonetheless, the government is
it's
hoping
fucking
it
not
will
gonna
prove
be.
successful.
Chris Bishop there saying bold, radical steps needed, Mike.
Yeah, bold, radical steps. So there you go, Chewy. They are going to put more roadblocks in the way of people getting emergency housing easily. They're going to focus on those most in need, which means those in need could then miss out. And they're going to handcuff the people on the front line to be able to use their eyes, ears, and brains to figure out a situation and force them to follow a checklist. That's this government.
And they couch it in such terms, right? Because it sounds good that they're prioritizing families with kids. That sounds good, right?
Yeah.
This perception, this image that people have of people and families in need is fucked. Okay, I've seen it in the comments around the poor kids that need feeding and that sort of thing, and just like people just don't think of the outside circumstances, right? What about this bludger? This person that I'm going to put up, it's not named, and it's I must admit, I did get this story from an absolute socialist rag, very biased to the left, very people focused, okay? So There we go. News Talk ZB. A disgrace. A pensioner in her 70s has days left to find a new rental in Tauranga.
Hang on. We were promised downward pressure on our rent. That was said a lot before the election. Downward pressure, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely none. Some of the highest rents in the country. There is nowhere for this woman to go. I want people to get real comfortable with seeing elderly people that are homeless and living on the street.
Gosh.
We might not see it for a while because obviously family members do what they can. This woman in this story, her personal situation is she's bouncing around the houses of her kids because they're all full-time workers and they can't look after her. So they're sharing the burden. That is not... What would that do to the mental health and the physical health of this woman?
Yeah.
At what point does she end up living in a caravan down the back of someone's section? At what point, as we head here in Dunedin, does she end up living in a tent on the side of a cricket pitch next to a motorway? And as we head in Dunedin, they die alone in a tent. Is that what we want? If I was to believe what I'm seeing on Facebook, if that's what I'm seeing in the replies to my comment on a Radio New Zealand story on Instagram, there's a big chunk of our population that is like, well, yeah, they should have worked harder. They should have saved better. Or more to the point, they should never have had bad luck in the first place.
Yeah. Don't have, I mean, it's your luck is your fault.
They don't, like, I'm 43, right? The first time I saw a homeless person, I was 18. You didn't see homeless people in Dunedin. You didn't see homeless people in Timaru. Now you do, like every major centre in New Zealand. Do people not see the problem? They walk past it every day.
Yeah.
And here we sit here, we go, we're a wealthy country. We're a developed country. You judge your country on how you treat the lesser of your citizens. We are found lacking.
Yeah.
And this government is like, that's A-okay. We've got budgets to keep. If you can't balance the books, and part of that balance is kids are fed, healthy, and learning, people are housed and healthy, then you are balancing the wrong books.
Yeah.
You work out what you need to do, and that is it. Make sure that kids are healthy, learning, fed, housed. That is the bottom fucking line as far as I'm concerned. And if you can't balance the books that way, you look at the people that don't have to worry about that month on month.
Yeah.
And you ask them to do a bit more. And I'm in that category. I don't have to worry about that. And if my share is a couple of extra bucks per month, I will gladly pay it. But there are people up the chain from me that will never have to worry about that. They could stop working. They could stop earning tomorrow. They're good until death. Those people should be pulling more weight. But they can't, or they won't, because their mates are in government and they've made contributions to make sure that they're never bothered with this shit. And they can just step over the body of someone sleeping in a doorway that has worked their entire life and shit just hasn't worked out for them. Fuck those people, and fuck people in the chat that are going, yeah, I voted for National, I voted for ACT, I voted for National First, and this is going exactly how I want it. My empathy for those people is diminishing by the day.
It is also that idea of there, but for the grace of God go I. The people you're talking about don't have an issue and their parents are fine as well. I've recently had a mate, and it's actually been publicised on the news. You know Frank Ritchie, yeah? He's been on the show with us a couple of times before. He had, I don't know the whole details, people can actually look it up. They've done stories on this. His daughter had a significant health issue that couldn't get treated in New Zealand, so they fundraised $120,000. They got given $120,000 on the Give a Little, and they took her to Germany to get the treatment that she needed. And like I'm pretty much down with the New Zealand health system, and it's pretty good, but when you get to experience, and I have an experience just watching Frank's story about the holes in it and the gaps in it, that's when you get empathy for what's not there. people of wealth, people of income, people of means, who maybe if their parents are still here, they might be quite comfortable in a retirement village. Maybe they've got their own house and they keep living. But it's once they experience, something that's not of their world, that's what brings empathy. That's why so many people whose parents or partners die of cancer, they say, in lieu of flowers, please donate X to such and such cancer society, because they experience it. And people who have means, people who are well off, people who are privileged, don't experience what we're talking about, so they have no empathy for it. Now, an empathetic person can not experience something and still have empathy for it, but there seems to be a sector of society, I'm not watching the chat, maybe some of them are in the chat, Joey, that choose to ignore or they're sociopaths that are incapable of empathy and think basically, if I'm okay, that's all that matters. And I just think if we can be anything in this show, Chewy, it's that we always want to be on the side of the weakest link, because we measure, like you just said, we measure ourselves by how we treat the least. And if the least are doing well, trickle down economics doesn't work. Trickle up economics is actually something that's been proven to be quite useful, valuable, and workable. If the least are doing well, it goes all the way up. Goes all the way up. If the least are doing well, everyone's doing well. If the top are doing well and the least are the most vulnerable, then you've got a pretty shitty country to sort out. And this government is going to create more of the least, because what they're bringing in, all these taxes, the conversation we had last night, Chewy, where we said, where Anna Burns-Francis on Breakfast yesterday was saying, what if people didn't read the fine print, Nicola Willis? And what if they were just thought that you guys would come along and there weren't going to be any new fees? Because yes, you didn't say there wouldn't be this, but now that there is, people are going to be worse off. Cost of living crisis, people are going to be worse off. Housing situation, emergency housing, people are going to be worse off. We have ministers in this government literally using the word austerity. That word is being used publicly
and avoided
in this government. Yeah.
Great lengths to avoid saying it as well. Look, I want everyone here to do a little mental exercise. In your head, if you get sick or your job dries up overnight, how many paychecks before you're completely boned?
Yeah.
Absolutely boned. And when you get to that point of being absolutely boned, desperate, nowhere else to go, you're going to, you can't keep your mortgage payments, you can't keep your rent, you're out on the street, you're on, how long till you're completely fucked? Like, absolutely. And you know that this country nominally has a social safety net, right? How long until you are of the most need that you can get 4 days in emergency housing? How desperate are things for you at that point? Yeah. Maybe you have kids. I think for the majority of New Zealanders, we are not even talking months.
Well, I mean, there was research done. I'm not sure if it was New Zealand as well, but it might have been in America, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was the same, that said most people can't get together $400 cash. Like most people don't have access to $400.
When I'm talking about our elderly as well, in most New Zealand centres, councils and that used to do pensioner flats. Some of it was social welfare, but a lot of the councils did blocks of pensioner flats. Now a lot of them are having to divest from them because ratepayer groups don't see the fucking benefit. Why are my rates going towards providing social housing when they should be going towards collecting my bins every week? Those people that are just rates fundamentalists, they're not seeing the value of everyone putting something into the social fabric of the society that we live in. And look, someone's going, oh, Chewy never criticised Labour. Welcome. I assume this is your first show.
First show. Fucking oats it would be. And I'm assuming all the people who know us in the chat are going, show me you've never watched the show without showing me you've never watched the show.
Every time. This is the cycle that we're trapped in. Okay? We have... And it doesn't matter where you start. You can start with the left government. You can start with the right government. The left government builds something. They go on a massive binge of building houses. And yeah, people go, oh, but Kiwi Build was a failure. It didn't do what it was supposed to do. And that is a failure on the Labor government. But what also happened under the Labor government was more houses being built in this country than ever before, short of the state housing boom post-World War II. Okay? And they had to do that because the national government fucking sold them off. There were less houses in New Zealand, and certainly, I think it was a third less social housing in New Zealand than there was at the start of their term.
Yeah.
But we lose this, right? And we kind of get sick of Labor, and we get sick of this left government, and it's time for a change. And then the change comes in, and they start swinging a scythe at people that can't defend themselves. And they wreck, and they roll back, and they tear things down. And then eventually, hopefully in 3 years, we realize what a pack of fucking demons we've let in, and we vote them out. And then the left come in, and they have to start building again. Wreckers and builders. I'm not a fan of the Labor Party. I think they squandered some of the biggest mandate that they've ever had. And we have criticized them multiple times on the show. But there is a difference between criticizing them because they're doing something but not enough, and criticizing these guys in here for coming in with a wrecking ball, removing as much democratic process as they can to rush this evil shit through. And if you support it, that's fine. Just say it loud and proud. I don't give a fuck about anybody else, and I don't think anything bad will ever happen to me. Because that's what it comes down to. You can step over those homeless people. You can spit on them. Let's roll back to Victorian times. Bring back the poorhouse. We looked at that society and we went, we can do better. And we did do better. And we're better than where we are now. Like, this is something that is just going to drive me crazy. And people should be angry. I'm angry. You may have noticed.
Well, I was going to say, Joey, I think what we're getting is 2 nights. Oh, you see what happens when you miss a show? You come back and I
got to make up for it.
You got to make up for it. You're so fired up. Not to kind of spiral away from that in some kind of pithy thing, but we are going to move on to the next topic. This conversation will continue, though. And so thanks to a few people. Thanks for the Super Chat Jackson Media. Choo-choo. All aboard the BHN train. Talking about our numbers earlier. Rachel says, did anyone else notice that on yesterday's clip, Nicola Willis kept saying that New Zealanders, not Kiwis. Good mahi, guys, by the way. Oh, New Zealanders, not Kiwis. Really? All right. Kiwi Bird says, late fee and a daily reminder that NACT NZ suck. Peter says, thank you for the super chat. The winter is going to be very hard and deadly.
Yeah, stick a pin in that.
Carl,
let's see how many people die under bridges.
Haven't seen Carl for a while. How you doing, mate? Carl, thanks for the super chat. Very generous. This government has a real Fagin. It's Fagin, isn't it? Vibe to it. Please, sir, may I have some more? It's just gross. For those who don't know, that's Oliver. Oliver. Never before.
Not Plunkett. That's a classical Oliver.
Well,
not
he could
that's
be.
Turned their back on their birthday.
The song could still work. Never before has a boy wanted more. And look, also a big thanks before we move on. We've had a bunch of people sign up for Patreon tonight, which is great. So we've got Josh in there, and we got I think it's Tania. It's probably Tania, and Rachel as well, and there as well as Carl and Angela and Johnny and Michael, who have bought merch. And remember, that'll keep scrolling along the bottom of the thing if you buy merch during the live stream. And it would appear that we are now finishing our first story at 10 to 10, that we're here until midnight. As long as we're live streaming, if you get merch, then we will get it to you. We will throw you in a bonus prize, which we've talked about earlier. While stocks last, of course. I don't want someone to... I'll work it out. I'll get some mugs or something printed. I don't know. I'll figure it out. All right. Let's go from one evil tyrant to another. Mr. Seymour, pardon me, is still refusing, by hook or by crook, to acknowledge that there is any research and positive vibes behind school lunches.
David Seymour says hundreds of millions of dollars could be slashed from the government-funded school lunch programs.
Let me just say this, and I'm not going to stop the lots this time. He's saying hundreds of millions could be slashed. Yesterday they were saying there's $25 million wastage. So why isn't he saying today $25 million could be saved? Because if it's about wastage, how are they going to save hundreds of millions of dollars unless they just get rid of all of it? Saying $350 million is what they currently spend, and that they say their numbers there was $25 million lost. So where is the hundreds of millions come from? Yes, Joey.
You're not thinking long term, Pat.
Okay.
Like if we cull the poor, then it's the long term savings.
All right. We'll keep going. Yeah. I'll do my best not to interrupt.
He's a good thinker.
Interrupt this too much.
Saying there's no proof it's improving achievement or attendance.
Labor disagrees and has launched a campaign to save them. But as Laura Tupou reports, new research shows the benefits come in different forms.
Break time at Dannyverk High School and it is loud. That's because there's no phones in this wharekai, this dining hall. So
that's pretty cool, eh? Put your phones in your bags, come and eat lunch, sit down and talk with your schoolmates. I think that's pretty cool.
Communication is old school, connecting with classmates and teachers over pumpkin soup today. And in the kitchen, they're flat tack, feeding not only these students, but 2 other smaller schools as well.
We're basically doing about 500 meals every day.
This is one of the schools providing free lunches funded by the government. It costs about $350 million a year across the country. Principal Di Carter says it's money well spent.
Everybody comes in and then we at least know that they've been fed, happy, they can work better, and those are the benefits, and they do come to school.
I reckon we're learning heaps more now that we've got full stomachs.
Well, the research we talked about yesterday was clear. Hungry kids on average are 2 to 4 years behind academically than anybody else. So remember we said this last night, Seymour and his ilk want to see NCEA returns, outcomes improve whilst having hungrier children at school, which will help them go backwards. So this is the government we're dealing with. This is them.
But the programs come under fire. Associate Education Minister David Seymour is proposing to slash it.
The job of the Education Department is kids going to school, learning lots, and the lunch program hasn't actually helped with those things.
But
the other thing I realised about this, Chewy, is that they're looking on some level at a tangible outcome where there's going to be some intangible benefits. So, for example, under this government, and we said this lots last election, before the election, under this government talking about outcomes, and there being a vibe of running the country like a government. We're not, running the country like a business. We're not a business. And the example I always gave was, if you were a business, immediately you get rid of all the libraries. There's no return there on the libraries. I kind of feel like school lunches is a little bit like libraries. What is the tangible response that you can measure from people being able to get books out? I don't think, I would struggle to think what a tangible result would be. There is research about this, but it's talking about the good feeling of the community, the goodwill. But one of the ways Seymour, we talked last night about how he's trying to negate research. Another thing he's doing is he's saying, I've not seen the kind of research that I need to see. So all that other research, that can go away, but I need to see numbers with decimal points. I haven't seen that, so it's not working. You want to say anything before we keep going?
Yeah. So for someone that obviously thinks he's smart as fuck, this man can't think further ahead than 3 years. If we're talking about a program that is going to keep kids fed and agree with the research that said kids that are not hungry learn better, the thing should be 10, 15, 20 years down the track that we have better achievement. We have people that are better educated, able to get better jobs, pull themselves out of a cycle of poverty and deprivation. It should improve, but none of these programs are given far enough runway to prove themselves, because somehow thinking that what is it, $300 million a year?
$350
million a year. Are there not other things that you can get savings from? Why are we, or is there not more tax take that you can get to fund it? Because we're taking away from children.
Yeah, tax cuts.
Getting away from kids.
Everything they're doing is to pay for their tax cuts. And now, this is why I started talking about they're at superhero villain levels. They are literally pulling the food out of hungry children's mouths to give it to wealthy landlords. That's where we've got to. And that's why Seymour refuses any of the research that negates his position. If it's inconvenient, he won't use it. It's what I said earlier. They'll use the experts when they need to. When the experts are counter to their position, they ignore them and they say there's no such thing. And he's doing it again. Yep, go.
Politically, like if I just shaved my head, polished it up, put on a blue suit,
yep,
and got kicked in the head by a horse and suddenly became right wing.
Yeah.
Like I could justify this. Say you came in, you go, fuck, we can't pay for anything that we promised. Shit. Nicola calculator ran out of batteries. I don't know. Why wouldn't you just say, hey, look, the Labor government has left our finances in such a fucking state that we are going to have to defer tax cuts. Yeah. We're going to fall on the sword. We're going to blame Labor and we're just going to status quo it and just see what we can do next budget. But no, they have chosen what they want to entrench themselves in on. With all of these cuts, with all of these, woe is me, we can't afford these programs anymore. Tax cuts from landlords has never been mentioned once as something that they would review. Not once.
Yeah, it is interesting when kind of everything's on the table, because they kind of say everything's being looked at. We're looking at every entitlement there, but they haven't said you're right at any stage. They haven't said, and we'll also look at the the promises we made, which maybe we can't fulfill. So, it's just where we're stuck. I'm just looking through right now on Wikipedia for my favorite Status Quo song, because when you said it's the Status Quo, I thought, yeah, they were a good band from the 80s. All right, let's keep going.
Labor's former Education Minister Jan Tinetti says that's not the advice she received.
There's evidence to show that there's a positive impact on attendance, but every single one of them, every single one shows that there's a positive impact on well-being for young people.
And again, the frontline people, the people at the school, have we heard from a single one who said, thank God we're getting rid of these school lunches? The people on the front line. Remember how important the front line, the front office for this government has been, not going to be impacted. The people on the front line, not a single one has come out saying, yeah, this will be fine. Every single one of them we've heard of has gone, oh, this is really good. It helps our community. It helps our students. We know it does. We can see it. And it would be really bad to take it away. So those front office people, all of a sudden, again, when it's inconvenient, Chewy, they ignore them. Yeah.
We love anecdotes, right? This government loves anecdotes. Here's an anecdote for you. At one of the schools here in New Zealand, in Dunedin, that has lower socioeconomic role, they get the free lunches and that sort of thing. At the end of the day, there are kids taking home food to their families.
Mm.
Now, if this is the way that the government's going, so you're going to say maybe they don't have a house, maybe they live in a car, maybe that kid's still going to school because the truant officer will come chuck him in an orphanage or something.
But maybe because he gets a meal. Maybe he gets a meal. That's why he goes to school.
Yep, and maybe at the end of the day, he's taking meals home to his family. Maybe he's the provider. Now that's still grim. The idea of a kid that is providing the meal for the rest of the family. But I would still rather that than a world where that kid isn't able to provide food for the family, or he goes to school on shit food or no food.
Yeah. All right, we're going to keep tracking.
Researchers at Massey University did their own homework and also found evidence that kids formed better relationships and improved so-called soft skills like self-management and relating well with others.
We know it's largely intangible impact, but it's about the well-being of our children for learning. And the complexity around achievement is there are so many variables that play into that.
Di Carter says no one from the previous or current government has visited her school, and she's extending the invitation to see what could be on the chopping block.
I believe that we would lose our attendance stats. The students would not come to school.
Front office, expert.
Could not afford to feed those students under the wages that they get at the moment.
Food for thought for the decision makers in Wellington. Laura Tupou.
So one other thing to tell you is that the Associate Professor, the researcher there from Massey University, Bevan Erueti, is how I'll pronounce it, is with us tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. So he'll be talking to us about this tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. I've talked a lot through that conversation. I don't know if I've got anything else to add right now. Cheryl, do you want to add anything else before we move on to the final
I
bit?
love the term that those soft skills of relating to others and that sort of thing as being an intangible. I tell you what, you might say it's an intangible now, but you certainly wouldn't say it's intangible if it's missing from your society.
Yep.
Like if you've got a cohort of young adults coming through that don't know how to do those things.
Yep.
You would certainly mention it. Now I'm going to highlight. Don't come at me, Pat. I'm going to highlight a chat from one of our most left-leaning regular watchers. Okay, and I'm just going to say yes, comrade. I completely agree. Why don't supermarkets spend some of that surplus to support school lunches? Fucking yes. Maybe that's something that should be mandated. That would be some social good. And in the past, like we've seen organisations like Fonterra, milk in schools and that sort of thing. It's good for the public image. It's good for the tax write-off and that sort of thing. I don't care what their fringe reasons for doing it is. If it results in kids eating well at school, then I am all for it. The other thing that I want to point out is, again, the stereotypes that are around these, the parents, these mooching scumbags, these welfare queens, and all of this, all the bad. Remember, we're coming off a time of record high employment and record low unemployment. That idea of the welfare queen or just really just shitty parents with kids, that's such a minimal group. We have working poor.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned this the other day. Before tax, a full-time minimum wage earner, like a cleaner or someone that works in a fast food restaurant or a warehouse somewhere, makes $47,000 before tax. Now, that parent could be working as hard as they can. They can be pulling all the extra shifts and just being a really diligent worker, and they care for their kids. But their landlords get in their rent take, their market rent that their property manager says, hey, look, you're under the market rent for this area. You should charge more. Everything could be going right, but someone there is still missing out, whether it is the mum or the dad that is the worker, that they're skipping meals so their kid can eat. Or maybe it's a point of like nobody really eats a proper nutritious meal because we've got rent to pay or we've got power to sort or firewood to get. We're just all going to have to do it tough.
Yep. I've just done the PAYE on that. No KiwiSaver, no student loan. That's $750 a week, $753 in the hand. So when you're also paying, $400 to $600 a week for rent, don't go very far. You can see why there's two working parents and families. All right, let's keep trucking. We've got one more to go. I was almost thinking about dropping Karen Chhour, her comment, because we know what she's going to say. She's talking, about boot camps, and we know their position. But I'll give her a couple of minutes, and then we're going to go hear from the expert, youth development worker Aaron Hendry, who was also on the AM show this morning to respond to her. Have a listen.
Yes, so right now we're developing a pilot program of a military-style academy, and this is to wrap around young people who come to the courts with repeat offences.
There's these words that actually are the right words to be using. It's wraparound. Now, when you hear wraparound, you think around the whole community, around the whānau, the household, the school. That's what wraparound does. I get the sense that this is a slightly different use of that word. Maybe it's been thrown in there as a buzzword, although she does talk about, around children in their community as well.
And end up within a youth justice facility.
And just privately and quietly, no one acknowledged this. I know that no one's really listening right now. I really struggle with this adult person saying youth with like 2 F's on the end. No, I mean, I know I mess up my words all the time, but there is something that doesn't quite sit well with me with a person deciding the children's future without being able to say youth, who says youf instead. It's just, maybe I'm being really cruel, but it doesn't sit with me.
Currently, this will be a pilot with around 10 young people working with multiple agencies to wrap around them and create a program that will help them in every area of their lives, so that once they come out of this facility, they're better off than when they went in.
In terms of the times that this has been tried in the past, there was an 8-week program that the previous national government brought in. The reoffending rate was 83% when they came out. What reoffending rate are you going to be comfortable with to say, okay, this program has worked?
This is a very, very good question, right? And this is what not enough journalists do. So she's just asked the question, and we did this when we had whatever the local Dunedin national MP was on. What would be an okay inflation rate for you? And when he said what it was only like 1.5% different from what it was currently at. Asking these ministers, fine, you're criticising what's happened. What are your numbers? And you might be surprised to hear, Chewy, she doesn't answer the question.
Look, right now, all I'm concentrating on is making sure that we get this program right and we get enough people involved with the skills that we need to make sure that the program works. Why these programs didn't work in the past and why this is different is we're going to make sure that we're working with the family and working with the community that that young person is going to return to, because we can't just send them back to the same environment they came from and expect a different result.
Do you think that's what was happening?
Revolving door.
Do you think that's what was happening last time?
I don't think there was a correct support network once they left these programs, and I've heard it from a few programs that are running now currently within the communities, that they struggle once they go back into the same environment that they came from. And it's the same as when coming out of a youth justice facility with no program at all. We need to make sure that these young people have the care and the wraparound services once they leave this program.
And I think that's something that we would agree with. They need wraparound. I'm not saying we agree with the bootcamps, but the wraparound. The question will be, will that happen? Or is this a buzzword? And I don't trust it will happen.
Work with the family and take the family on the journey too, because this is not just about the young person. These young people are committing crimes out in the community. They're creating victims. They're hurting other people. We have an obligation to keep that young person safe, but we also have an obligation to keep the community safe. And what we're focusing on right now as a government is serious youth crime, because youth crime is out of control in communities. Everyone you talk to knows that there is a problem with youth crime. This is just another tool to work with to help these young people turn their lives around.
And look, it is on some level, it's the right word. And look, if you guys saw that comment that just came out before, I actually put that up myself because it's a fair point. I'll put it up again from John. Fair point. I retract and apologise. I wouldn't call myself a bully. I was taking the piss a bit, and I shouldn't have. So, yep, fair, fine. Right, now moving on. So research the world over says this is not going to work. In fact, about...
the research here says it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying everywhere, including here. One of the things it does say, which sounds like a strange way to say it, but they were talking about it yesterday as well on one of the breakfast shows, is that one thing that it can do when young people go through these boot camps is they come out fitter, faster, stronger criminals. That's what they actually said. That says they can actually train them to be fitter, faster, stronger, and then they have an 83% recidivism rate. You've actually just helped them to continue to commit crime. But on top of all of that, whatever the wraparound will be, that'll be the end game. And the biggest thing, Chewy, for me is Oranga Tamariki has been the people who have been told that they're going to be running this. I said this last night. It's like someone with a nut allergy having to cut the peanut brittle. Like, do you really honestly think Oranga Tamariki is going to want to be running boot camps? Do you reckon that's their skill set? Come on, out comes Mr. Luxon, out comes Oranga Tamariki running boot camps. Think about it.
These guys look back. They don't look back far enough. We've just had a Crown inquiry into abuse in state care.
Yeah.
Whenever we have something like this where the state is involved in some fucking tough love program, I'm just like, were you not paying attention? When these guys talk about wraparound care, I think, yeah, Borstals were wraparound care. That didn't work. That's how we got gangs. You know, it's the only way. Like, I went through a military style course in my teens. I was in the cadet forces.
Right.
Do you know what the difference is, Pat? Everybody in the cadets wanted to be there. When they talk about the LSV course that was trialled a few years back, that was the difference. People wanted to be there. It was a choice.
Yeah.
If you force people, like, these guys are thinking back to the good old days of conscription, where everybody was forced to do military service, and some people look on with great fond memories, gave them life skills and that sort of thing. It's not that. There's a reason why the army doesn't want to engage in military style boot camps. It's not what they're there for.
Yeah.
And you're right. OT shouldn't be involved in this either. It sounds dreadful. Like, if someone like Seymour would be behind this, if he wanted to spin up a charter school that was a military style academy, sure. As long as there's choice there, because someone that has made that choice is more motivated to make use of it. Someone who is mandated by the courts to be in a boot camp is just going to do it. It's like when people get given community service, they're forced to be there. They begrudgingly do the work. They don't throw themselves in. It's a punishment that you have to endure. And that's all these people care about, is the punishment. They don't care about the 83% recidivism rate, which is laughable. Like that, like, if you want to talk about a waste of money in a program, a program where 80+% of people that go through it go back exactly the same as when they went in, that is a wasteful program.
So that's a 17% success rate if it's those numbers. When they're going to cancel, remember, lunches in schools, which the waste number that they have given us, 25 million out of 350, is about 7%. So they're they want to get rid of something that is a 93% success rate and replace it with something based on the last number that had a 17, not replace it, sorry, but to add in something different with something in the old days that had a 17% success rate. It's ridiculous. But we should also hear from the expert, Chewy, because you know how much this government likes to hear from experts, bring people in from the outside. That's what they want to do. So this man is a youth development worker. His name, I believe, is Aaron Hendry, and he actually came on to AM after Karen Chhour, and this is what he had to say about it when he was asked about what she said given you confidence? Is what the minister said given you confidence?
No. I mean, I'm incredibly concerned that, you know, in the current climate, both in the cost of living crisis and just the realities we're facing in the community, that we're investing significant resource into a program that we know doesn't have an evidence base. In fact, there's actually decades of evidence showing that military-style camps are ineffective. And in the small spaces where there is some outcomes, it's often very, it's short-lived, and it's because of that therapeutic support with evidence showing that the military style actually works against the outcomes that we're trying to achieve. So the big question is, why are we pushing ahead with this?
Yeah, I mean, that is the question, because the evidence shows that when the last government did it, it was like 80% failure rate, right? 80% went on to re-offend. Are these ones going to be any different? Oranga Tamariki is running that. What do you make of that?
Look, the style of camp which has been discussed here has been trialled internationally as well. Again, putting that counselling services and wraparound supports, that's exactly what we need. It's the military side and the philosophy that kind of underpins that has shown to be ineffective. It's great to say we're going to be working with communities when they come out, but there's going to be needing to be significant investment into mental health services, into disability services, into ensuring that young people have the right to housing and that whānaus are getting really intensive support. And right now we're not seeing that significant investment. The drivers of these crimes, the drivers of the harm being caused are in our communities. It's poverty, it's homelessness, it's the lack of support for whānau who have kids with disabilities and high-level mental illness. If we're not going to address that stuff, it does not matter what we pour into the justice system. We continue to have poor outcomes for our people. And it is the victims. There's those people who are being harmed right now, and I want to acknowledge them and the harm that they have experienced. but they are being sold something that is not going to cause a good outcome for them. It's not going to fix the problem.
So that is the expert. And as I said, this government likes to bring in outside experts. There's a youth. And the point that I am most interested about what he said, he mentioned all the research and he says how it hasn't worked, but the significant investment. So I think what's basically being said, if this even had a chance to work, it is going to cost huge quantities of money for the wraparound after the boot camp. And look, I don't know what's going to happen. I can't say what's going to happen. I don't know for sure. But the one thing we can say for sure is that this government doesn't fill anyone with a great amount, unless you're a landlord, with a great amount of confidence in thinking huge amounts of money need to be thrown at this issue. What this comes off at, a bit like the gang patch law, is perhaps a good headline, but pretty bad policy, Chewy.
Absolutely. When these guys, and by these guys I mean this triple-headed monstrosity that is our government, talk about the amount of money that these programs are costing.
Yeah.
They always talk about the total cost, right? $350 million. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like you, the listener, are not going to have any comprehension of how much money $350 million is. I want to come back to that food program, right? Would you mind paying $1.34 a week to make sure that these kids get a lunch, that these communities get some food? Because that's what it is. $70 a year per person in this country, and that's just like if everybody had to pay their fair share. And I went with 5 million total population, obviously not total taxpayers, but we can fudge those numbers a little bit. But it's $1.34 a week. And why don't we have a government that mentions programs in those terms? For your average taxpayer, you're having to shoulder 72 cents. What an outrage. There's a reason that they don't. There's a reason. Because too many people would go, yeah, that seems fair enough. But yeah, and look, as someone, as I said, that has gone through a military-style training in my youth and really appreciated the things that did for me, that was a choice that I made. That's what made it effective. That's where any good story that comes out of a military-style boot camp, like the LSV course that the Army ran, all the success stories, I bet, will be from people that says, I wanted to do this. I was engaged in this program.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm sure there are some people who get sent to prison who use that time to educate themselves and come out of it a better person. Most don't. Most come out of it more skilled in crime than they went in. So anecdotal versus, and I'm sure what National's doing at the moment is looking for those one or two people, Chewy, who went through it under the previous National government and have a great success now. I'm sure they're looking for those, and they'll ignore the 599 other people who went through it and perhaps suffered for it, or it made them, they're one of the 83%. But yeah, tomorrow night, Bevan Irieti is going to be joining us at 9:00, and we'll be having a whole big chats about these things. Yeah.
The other big thing that I was going to say here is, as was mentioned, the wraparound care in the community, the family, make sure the communities are supported, right? That absolutely makes sense. There's not anybody that is listening to me now that can go, yeah, that sounds like that would make it more successful. If it just wasn't this kid on his own, it was his family, it was his peers, it was his community that was supported with the things that they need to produce a functional citizen for this country. But you know what that isn't, Pat? That isn't a pithy. That's not a pithy election slogan. That's not a bumper sticker.
No bumper
That's
sticker.
not vibes. That's not the vibes this government is going for. This vibes of boot camps, punishment, hardness, austerity, mean, nasty vibes all round.
Yeah.
And that's motivated a segment of our population that we need to get back in the fucking jar.
100%. All right, team. Not sure why, but tonight's been our most watched live episode ever. Don't know what's happened if someone's put it up somewhere else, but we've had more people viewing live tonight than we've ever had viewing live before. The numbers that we've hit tonight, I don't know if many of you guys know who the Vanguard is, but the Vanguard are something like this, based out of Kansas City in America. They have about 25,000 YouTube, 30,000 YouTube followers. The numbers we've hit tonight are what they're just breaking now on their best nights. And we have 6,500 YouTube followers, as well as everything else. So whatever happened tonight, to get a few more of you along, we appreciate it. If you want to be a part of what we do, you can go and get some merch. You can head to patreon.com/Big Hairy News if you want to be a part of that. And thank you to Solace for the super chat, $5. According to Seymour, if the evidence doesn't work for him, we need to raise our standard of debate. Yeah, that's what he was saying last night. Raise the standard of debate and not be biased. So appreciate your time tonight, team. It's been good. As I said, if you've enjoyed what you've done, you've come along for the first time and you've enjoyed it, there's the Patreon, patreon.com/Big Hairy News. You can be a part of it. Or you can just come back, or you can share our stuff. Make sure you're following us on YouTube. I'm actually starting to put some stuff on Facebook, Chewy. I've decided to finally find another hour in my day to upload things to Facebook as well. So if you haven't followed it, we've just snuck in there with like 1,200 Facebook followers. I've never really given it any attention. Sorry, Facebook. But I'm going to start doing more of that. So there'll be clips going up on Facebook. Like us on Facebook, follow us and subscribe on YouTube. And you can follow us on Twitter. And Chewy, you're on Orange Sky or something, Blue Sky. What's that thing called?
I'm on Blue Sky and Mastodon and that sort of thing.
Mastodon.
I tried to do a TikTok once, but I sprained something, so we're not going to do it. And I don't look good in cat ears.
Fair enough.
So,
all right. Well, I'm out. I'm done. Anything else you want to leave us with, Chewy?
Look, if this is going to be our biggest night so far, I'm gonna take the message that it's sending, and you want more Chewy rants, more unhinged Chewy rants, and it'll get so bad at one point I'm gonna just storm out of my room and start a march, and you're just gonna have to pick me up somewhere along the lines as I head up the South Island. I expect people to follow me. We will do rousing socialist songs.
Thanks for being a part of the show tonight, team. We'll be back tomorrow night from 9 p.m. for another live edition of Big Hairy News. You can get us, of course, on demand on Apple Podcasts, and, of course, all through Twitter, TikTok, and also YouTube with clips and stuff coming out over the next wee while. You would look gorgeous in car ears. Holy shit. What are car ears?
Cat ears.
Sorry. Sorry. All right. Thanks, team. Been great. We'll catch you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. Stay safe. Remember, come back tomorrow night and bring a friend, like obviously some of you have done tonight, because it's been a big live viewing show. All the best.
If you haven't got friends, make some.
Make some friends and bring them tomorrow. Catch you tomorrow at 9. Hooroo.
Cheers, fam.